Hello and welcome to the National Road Safety Partnership Program, the Osmose Story of Turning the Tide with Telematics. Implementation is the key. My name is Jerome Karslake and I'm Director of the NRSGP. If we go to the next slide, please. And it's many activities. To find out more, please visit the NRSGP website, register for our newsletter, or follow us on social media, such as our LinkedIn page. There I am. So today's session is going to go for about 60 minutes. We're going to have plenty of time for discussion at a couple of points as we go through. And mostly at the end. But yeah, throw your questions in. We'll be recording the session today and it will be shared on the NRSGP website and with you by email tomorrow. Now, here you go. We're using the GoToWebinar function today and we'd love to hear from you as we go through. So make it as interactive as possible. Type your questions in here so we can see them and the chat is open as well. Now, let's dive into who we have as our presenters. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning.
So a bit about Mike. Mike has over 25 years of global experience across the energy sector, including technical, operational, senior commercial, and business management roles. He worked for General Electric from 1997 to 2023, where he worked for the operations and management of utility-scale power plant sales and commercial operations roles for both services and new equipment, and more recently, led the field service team in Asia. In this role, the approximately 3,000 engineers and technicians will provide maintenance installation services in the oil and gas, renewables and fossil fuel power generation sites across the Asia Pacific and Ocean area region. In May 2023, Mike joined Osmose Australia as Managing Director and CEO, and he's lived in Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Thailand, Taiwan, Switzerland, Malaysia. Wow. And now he's got to return home to Perth, West Australia. I'm envious of you, mate.
Thanks, Joe.
So joining Michael is another powerhouse, Tanweer. Hey, Tanweer.
Hi, guys.
So Tanweer has over a decade of experience working with both the technical and the people aspects of the telematics and fleet technology. He's implemented telematics in the power and water utilities in WA, as well as worked with a leading global telematics company. In 2023, he stepped out and started Driver Tech, a data analytics company with a mission to solve telematics problems and help maximize the benefits and ROI from the telematics fleet data. Tanweer is passionate about improving driver safety in fleets and how it finds his daily work and as well as his business. So, and the best thing is you're going to hear Michael and how he uses how Tanweer fits into the business case as we go through. So let's dive in, guys.
Thanks, Joe. Again, good morning, everybody. Just a little bit of background on Osmose. We're incorporated in 1934. Our headquarters is in Atlanta in Georgia. Nearly 5,000 employees across the US, Canada, Australia, and more recently the UK. We provide inspection, life extension services to the utility industry. So all of our major customers throughout Australia are utility customers. We also do some work with non-utility customers, but again on the transmission distribution lines. We visit 9 million structures as assets in a year. Australia is about 350,000 of that. Australia and New Zealand covering everything from the north of WA right through to Queensland and down to Tasmania. So quite a large geographical area. Company revenue is just over $1 billion Australian per year. That's the global organization, 650 customers throughout the world. So, you know, quite a large organization and a really good footprint in a number of the developed countries. Slides are slow.
Yeah, it's a bit slow too. Yeah, we go.
So I think, yeah, just a very brief summary. Where we're working, most of it is on the asset life extension, and that's where we put a lot of our investments. It's a big part of the challenges for the utilities and how to get more life out of their current assets. We do structural restoration, primarily around steel towers. There's technical services, which is joint use audits and a number of engineering services, and then advanced analytics, where we're looking at how we use AI and also predictive modeling that can help help utilities run their assets a little bit better. Customers in Australia, so you can see most utility customers on the right-hand side of the page. We have been investing here locally, doing work with some of the universities on timber science to see how we can better preserve the existing assets. We provide storm resilient solutions, so when storms come through and impact the network, we've got a couple of different services that we can offer. A big investment in people, and we've expanded predominantly from being a Western Australia-based company, moving into the East Coast. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really that investment into people through safety. Our customer engagement, again, as I said, it's national, mainly utilities, some mining companies, some municipalities or shires and councils. Again, same thing, again, around extending the life of our assets or their assets. And then just recently, we announced a partnership with Mira to help utilities, T&D infrastructure. We use a lot of our data and then also some of their modeling to sort of provide AI-powered insights into how they can get more from their current assets. Just a little bit of background to set the stage for Osmose. For a fleet of 100, 110 vehicles and tractors. Driving is our single highest risk activity we do. We are working around electrical networks, but we're not working on the live part of the network. So driving is our biggest risk. Our teams are either a single crew or working in a two-person team, so they're a lone working team as well. We did have a hangover from a previous culture where the analytics and the fleet management, IVMS, was seen as a tracker and to track employees and where they were. So it took us a little bit of time to try and get the trust employees back, which we had to demonstrate through a number of different pieces we'll touch on as we go through. We had up to 4 different IVMS trackers in one vehicle. Well, actually, it was more than one vehicle. So we were just really, the investment had been made, and then we really weren't getting anything back from it, and we could just continue to pile on top of each other without really having a very clear strategy. It was just used for tracking and really nothing to deliver back to the employees or to the drivers or in regards to safety. Working with Teneo, we optimized the technology, so we went and rationalized it to one system. We rebranded as a driver safety system. So we wanted to move away from the negative connotation of a tracker into something what we really wanted to be was a driver safety system. Lots and lots of discussions with employees. I would say a big part of our change management was engagement with all of the drivers. And we started leading with the management and the supervisors through the organization to then demonstrate to the drivers that this is not just a method to be checking on them, but also something that's going to help them. We did a number of pilots. I said senior leaders first. We provide transferring to the drivers, which is something a little bit unique or a lot of people haven't quite done yet, but each driver receives a weekly or now twice weekly report with their driving incidents or records for that week. Initially that was weekly, and the employees actually came back and actually requested that to be twice a week. They were getting the information so they could link better to the events, to what was actually happening and where it was happening. We limited access to cameras, so we have forward-facing and cab-facing cameras in 100% of our vehicles now. We limited the access to myself and Tung Weir, were the only 2 that had access for the longest time. We've recently extended that to 2 directors in the company. But again, we manage that very carefully. It's used really, again, for in-cab alerts. That's the primary focus to support the drivers and their driving behavior, not for anything else. Sharing of the footage for drivers is for self-correction. We use it as coaching. And we've deliberately stayed away from having a disciplinary policy around driving, speeding, harsh driving, etc. So the key theme of what we've really done is to try and put information back in the hands of the driver, empower them to make better decisions, and then just coach as we go along. So quickly, we'll just touch on a video here. If you just bear with us while we convert over. This is regards to the AFMA award that we won in 2024. I thought it'd be a good way to just do a bit more of an introduction for everyone.
And on that, I think it's a key thing just to point out, like a lot of us here, awards get presented and companies get them. I think now you're going to understand the why. So that's why I really appreciate you taking the time to share. This is why you won the award. Whilst we're waiting on that one, Michael, I was just wondering, you mentioned about how your workers have been sort of getting shared with reports. How have you found, like, what's their reaction over time?
You hear now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
We've just switched to the other mic. And just give me 1 second. I am just switching to the video.
Osmose is a service provider for utility energy infrastructure networks covering Australia and New Zealand. We have about 110 vehicles and we drive approximately 2.4 million kilometres per year.
Specific safety initiatives we implemented was the driver safety system, and there we focused on the driver performance and not necessarily on a disciplinary approach to engage our drivers. We started with a driver engagement where we had the drivers to help us to set parameters to ensure we get the right information back to the drivers.
Our team spend a significant amount of time driving. They're working in remote areas. Unlike an office or factory environment where we can monitor the safety, we needed to put safety back into their hands and provide them with the data to improve their behaviours and also the culture around safety.
We engaged Dan Weir from DriveTech Solutions. He assisted us with all the data collection, data analytics to ensure we can communicate with our people in the field on what we are doing.
Osmose have telematics installed in all their vehicles. The remote workers have Garmin satellite devices, as well as they complete restart safety checks on a daily basis. And we are also currently in the process of rolling out AI dash cameras. However, the approach that we've used is not just about hardware that's inside the vehicles, it's driver-centric, where we change the attitudes that drivers have towards safety. We have implemented automated dashboards that are available for all staff, as well as drivers get their individual, personalized and confidential reports on their driving performance on a daily basis.
The initiative initially was very negative. The drivers were skeptical on how management would be using the information obtained. We try to be as transparent and open as possible with these drivers, make them part of the system, part of the process, so that they can see what information we are getting and what information we are not recording at all.
One of the first things that we did as part of the safety initiatives was rebranding telematics to driver safety system. Previously, some drivers had the perception that it's a tracker or a monitoring device.
The confidentiality of the information was very, very highly rated. We used the information to assist the drivers in their performance, also to get a better understanding of what is happening. We've also implemented a reward system for the drivers. The best driver and the most improved driver, they all receive rewards every month, just to try and establish a culture of safe driving.
Since implementing DSS, we have seen a significant improvement in safety. Speeding duration, for example, has reduced by 90%, and we've had no high-speed events since November. We classify speeds above 135 kilometers per hour as excessive speeding, and we've also seen a reduction in harsh driving events by 55%, and overall driver score has also improved by 20%.
The focus on safety goes just beyond compliance. We need to make sure that all the employees have the information in hand to change behaviour, drive the culture improvement, and make sure they get home safely every single day.
We believe our approach is scalable and adaptable to other fleets, and we'd be happy to share learnings with other organisations to implement such initiatives.
Go back to the slide.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that video. It's so insightful.
Okay. All right, just look at a little bit of sort of my true north. So I've done a number of different roles as it relates to safety. This is the DuPont-Bradley curve for those that haven't seen it. It really starts as how you set a safety culture. And at the far left of the curve, in stage one there, this is where it's a very tops-down driven, disciplinary type safety culture. People will do as they're told only because they're told, not because they see the value in what we're trying to achieve. Obviously, the extreme is over in stage 4, where it becomes self-managed. You get to a point of maturity where employees no longer need management leadership oversight to drive safety in the workforce. It's where they're actually out there doing it themselves. And as we've gone through this transition on the IBMS, telematics, the cameras, we've really sort of focused on how do we move this culture. We cannot be with all of our teams every single day. It's just too many people and too diverse an operation. So we really do depend on them doing the right thing when no one's looking. Right? You know, I continually look at this chart as a gauge to where we are. It's a self-assessment. There's no hard and fast rules with it, but I would recommend it highly to anyone to actually have a look and see where you feel you sit within your safety culture. Obviously, the further you move it to the right, the safer your organisation will be, and it takes it from being where you've got an individual maybe trying to push it to where your whole team is then keeping each other honest. Thank you. So the driver safety system setup was really critical to getting us up and running with better coaching, better information provided back to our drivers. We send critical alerts to the senior leadership team, and one of us will call the driver directly. If we see speeding, if we see fatigue, if we see repeated sort of harsh driving events, then we pick up the phone, we give them a call and ask, you know, what's wrong? You know, is schedule making you have to hurry, or, you know, is there something, you know, why are you using your phone in the car? Do you have a phone holder, et cetera, et cetera. So we're using it as a coaching. We haven't used it for disciplinary at all. The dashboards help us keep a really good oversight into where we're fitting. It helps us primarily around the safety side. There's also knock-on benefits to other bits and pieces like fuel maintenance, our fuel tax credits, providing feedback back to our customers on how we're performing. Again, it's the driver reports sent to the drivers. I don't see them. I've never seen one of them yet as an individual. It's something that's there sent to the driver for the driver. It's not for management. Again, we see alerts. We have healthy internal competition between teams to see how they're competing with their peers, and we really promote the positives of it, not the negatives. Look, I'd say the success that we had was by shifting the driver's mindset. Yeah, I think people saw their vehicle as maybe a tool of the trade, but they didn't see it as a risk in what they were doing every single day. So with this, we've actually empowered them to see the risks that they're taking, particularly on things like speeding. We used to hear all the time excuses around I was overtaking. We provided them data on what that overtaking really meant, and now I think as we said before in the video, we haven't had an excess for reckless speeding event since November last year. Oh, sorry, November in 2023. So, you the excuses have gone. We still manage to overtake where we have to. We're just doing it in a lot safer way. And I think, with a lot of time on country roads, it's really, really important that that people are conscious of these things and don't feel the need to take risks, to overtake, to meet production, right? It all starts with safety, and safety sets the pace. Pause there. Jerome, questions?
As I said to the audience, 3 questions through as we go on. I've got one for you. How long has it taken? Has it been hard to get buy-in from your workforce into it?
Not really. Okay. I mean, yes, there is outliers. There was a couple of people that were really concerned. Tanwir has done a lot, sort of as the independent person that's not part of the management team. He's done a lot of work connecting one-on-one. He's made himself available to any one of the team at any time for any questions. I get guys coming back into the office and saying, can they see the footage from the cameras, or can we show them the data and show us their events, and we bring it up and have a look at it. I think initially there was some skepticism, but the more that we show them that this is for the employee, not for management, the better the engagement has been. The pilots helped as well. So we had our employees tell the story rather than me trying to tell the story, or Tanwir's telling the story. So I think that was key in the change. And it's really got to a point now where some of the feedback we get, I mentioned before, the reports were initially weekly. They want them twice a week. So they're seeing the value in it. One of our drivers made a comment that, he now, when he's with his family driving, him and his wife would talk about different things that they should be doing, or how they would drive safe. So I think it's now sort of going from just being a workplace tool to really changing the behavior of people. It gets much easier when you have the team telling the story for you.
And just one thing I'd like to add, Jerome. Yeah, I think the open communication with people, drivers coming up to me. So I've been involved with the change management through the DSS program, and this is the most engaged I have seen in my experience. The drivers have been just because the trust has been built up over the program. As soon as sort of they realize that it's not for discipline, the trust builds up, and then they're very interested. I believe everyone wants to be a good driver. I think they just need a bit of help, a bit of coaching, and understanding why they're doing what they're doing.
I think that's a really interesting point you make there as well, both of you, is it really shows a shift. Michael, when you mentioned about that driver, how it flows into family life, that really shows you when you've really entrenched culture and got the people buying right into it.
Yeah. That's the sort of feedback that we get that makes us feel like we're doing the right thing, right? Where people are taking this back to home. There's still outliers. There's still some skepticism that comes up every once in a while, and we continue on that same path. I mean, it's a year and a half now, I think, of having this, and there's still discussions. We try something new. We had seatbelt alerts that were giving false alerts for a while, and we also showed them how many positives there were. And again, you think that naturally you jump in a car and you put in your seatbelt, but when the guys are working in a field or running through a paddock and driving 100 meters and stop and getting out of the vehicle, 100 meters stop and get out of the vehicle, we've showed them that even driving at low speeds, it can be a real hazard if you hit a pothole or a trench in a paddock. Right? It's not just the road safety on the roads, and you show people what it's like, and employees we will go to them and get their permission to share footage with their peers, so we can actually show how serious things can be, and I think that sort of community sharing piece of it all as well makes it a lot more realistic.
You mentioned as part of your True North, you made that comment just earlier on. It must be super rewarding when you see this as a leader.
It is. It feels like we're doing the right thing, right? If we have to, as a leader, be sitting there and beating the drum every single day and telling people that they have to do it because we say so, not very rewarding. But when you see the changes coming in and where they're self-monitoring, to me, that's the real win.
Well, I've got a few questions to throw at you, and some of them I think we'll be touching on and expanding later on the presentation. So you can might just answer them briefly and say that we'll go in more detail. So John here asks, what safety events are you recording and reporting onto drivers?
We report any speeding event. So regardless of the speed, overspeed, harsh cornering, harsh braking, harsh acceleration, and
driving over 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours fatigue. So driving over 2 hours without a break. So that's in every single report as a standard.
And I know you made a remark about this earlier about how you use it. So Lindy asks, when would an incident move from a coaching event to a disciplinary event action?
Thankfully, we haven't got there yet. I would say personally, when an employee no longer cares or doesn't feel that it's required to behave in a safe manner, that's where it would go into a disciplinary action. It's more on behavioral, it's on attitude. If they're continually pushing back, disregarding the coaching, I think that's when you have to start to think about disciplinary action. There's no room for people who are just going to take safety not as a priority and disregard other people's safety as well.
Nice. Question here from Brendan. Had you implemented fatigue monitoring in vehicles?
So our driving policy has a requirement for drivers to take a break, a 15-minute break every 2 hours. So that's what the IVMS is or the driver safety system is tracking. The cameras are a newer addition, and it actually then will take a number of different AI feedback from the in-cab. It can be repeated yawning, it can be eyes closing, micro sleeps, bits and pieces, and then that actually gives them an in-cab alert for that one. But the first one we started off was just making sure that people were taking a break.
So I think, Brendan, to watch this space and circle back on that one. And this is a positive outcome already, even before we get into the meat as you dive into it in the next stage. So Sarah's asking, is this system ready for market? As in, if another company wants to implement it, can they take this out of the box?
I would say, I mean, it's definitely available for market. This is the work that Tunweir and we've been doing is partnering together. It's not, I wouldn't say necessarily out of the box, is you've got to make it tuned to what your policies are, what you're trying to achieve from it. But it doesn't take a lot to get there. I think all the data comes in. It's really what you do with the data once it gets in there.
So yeah, if the references to the camera system, I think out of the box, there does need to be a little bit of testing. I think the audience might be aware that there are a few camera systems out there, and the AI is always learning. Some are better than others. An example, Seeing Machines has been in the industry for over 20 years, and their AI has been developed over a long period of time. But I think with the false positives that the camera system gives, you just can't get away from it, because there are factors like heights of people and the color of shirts that they're wearing for seat belts, Mike mentioned before. So yeah, out of the box, the camera system needs a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of change management before we get there. And as far as IVMS goes, I think out of the box, it's very, very powerful in what it gives us. And we'll get into it a little bit soon on how we have helped Mike. But out of the box, sort of, IVMS is very powerful in giving you the data. But quite often you'll hear IVMS companies say it's self-serve. So you have to do something with the data, and that's really where the benefits are, and that's where it's powerful to get insights from the data.
I think one of the key things is, as we can move on the rest of the next stage now, I think it's just remembering these are all tools, and it's how you take this tool and apply it. And I think this is what we're hearing, the amazing part. You mentioned change management, engaging drivers, bringing them on the journey, getting their buy-in, the cultural part. I think that's all how you then use the tool.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's go next part.
Do you want to go for it?
Yeah. So we were talking about the data. I think it's a good point to talk about this now. So where DriveTech sort of fits in, it's sort of plugs the gap between the technology provider and the end user. So how we've helped Mike is with change management, like you mentioned before. I think that change management is really probably the most important thing when it comes to bringing the drivers on the journey. Engaging with them, listening to them, make them feel heard. But then the other aspect is the data. Telematics gives you a lot of good data. It's very detailed. Sorry, have we just dropped out? Are we back on?
No.
Did we just drop out? Yeah. It's very powerful in the way it's marketed, that telematics can improve a lot of things, but how we get there, like Jerome said, it's a tool, and what we do with the data is how it becomes beneficial. So where we help Mike is getting sort of actionable, deep insights from the data, making it really easy to analyze for Mike and his senior leadership team as well, to get quick insights as well. A lot of the times you have to do a lot of manipulation with the data. So what we did was implement really easy to use automated dashboards that are updated every day, but not just focusing on events. I think this is where a lot of IVMS systems, sort of focus on events. Events are the base measurement of how things are recorded, but what we did with them was to really try and normalize it across all drivers, so that we can understand, for example, someone doing 100 events and driving 10,000 kilometers is different to someone doing 100 events and driving 1,000 kilometers. So normalizing and standardizing across your drivers is very important. And then from there, you can get insights about who's the best driver, who's the most improved driver. So focusing on those positive aspects as well, rather than just the negatives, which helps with the carrot part of the process rather than the stick. And we talked about the higher speed being recorded in November 2023. So having that baseline historical data to compare to is quite important as well. So insights, I think what telematics gives you is quite detailed and rich data. From there, we've really tried to extract as many actionable insights as possible. So what you see on screen there, we have implemented heat maps to see if there might be some areas that might be more risky for drivers. For example, a corner that always has more events or more harsh braking. That may also relate to some black spots that the roads authority might have, black spots, red spots, whatever that might be, high accident spots. And also in terms of, if you see here at the top, to quickly identify who might be contributing to the highest risk in the business, which helps with coaching and having those conversations to really sort of dig deeper into why certain things were happening. Overtaking is a good, it's a really good example where drivers might be speeding, but it's good to understand what the context was. And I think Mike and his team have been really good with having those conversations and really listening to the drivers rather than using the discipline approach, which is what is done quite a lot out there. And just the last part here on the left, if you see these The heat map there is the times and days of the week that might be high risk. So we've tried to focus on identifying the risk, where the riskiest activity might be, and how we can have those conversations. So what you can see, the red bars there, they tell us that Tuesdays and Thursdays are the highest risk for speeding. And further, Thursday 9 a.m. is highest risk. And we've identified reasons on why that would be the case. So in terms of results achieved, and some of these results are contributed to the AFMA's Fleet Safety Award last year. 31% improvement in driver score. So I mentioned normalizing, standardizing the events. We have implemented a driver score which takes into account the events, but also normalizes it back to the kilometers driven. So that increased significantly over the period. Harsh events or harsh accelerations on the screen there, they reduced by 94%. Harsh braking reduced by 79% over the period, which was about 12 months of measurement. Speeding duration, this is a big one. I think this is a good example of not focusing on events, but putting things into context. So one speeding event for an hour is actually 60 minutes or 3,600 seconds of driving over the speed limit, but the event is only one. So that's what we have focused on, is looking at those kinds of things where we get insights on something that gives you more context and the severity of the event. And that was really pleasing for us to see, that 91% reduction. So we have nearly sort of, reduced it from sort of 12 or 13 hours down to 1.1. To put that into context, that was 0.03% of total driving time. So, quite a big achievement there. 2.3 million kilometers is what the drivers drove in that period. So 0.03% it was a great achievement. And also for that amount of time, or the kilometers, we managed to eliminate excessive speeding above 135. And the goal is to get down to as close to as possible to 110 with keeping safety in mind. The other benefits that Mike talked about before, the flow-on benefits, we strongly believe that once you look after safety, you start seeing some other benefits in fleet. Average fuel consumption improved by 20%, and also unplanned maintenance, there was a huge reduction of 55% in that time.
Yeah, so like I think key lessons learning, we're continuing to raise the bar. So we're now measuring and recording posted speed limits. So we started obviously at excessive speeding over 110 kilometers an hour for a light commercial vehicle. We've now said, all right, it's back to posted speed limits. So we can't do this as live feedback for our drivers, but at the end of the trip, the software then gives us a posted speed limit in that area and shows overage. So, we're now trying to move this from being sort of open highway and country driving back to how it is in a metropolitan area or as you come into a town. Again, well accepted by the drivers. They've seen, we've demonstrated how gained their trust in the first phase. And so, we're already seeing some positive results here on this. This is only something we've just started this year, is using these posted speed limits. But, I think these are always evolutions, and you've got to be looking at how you continue to improve things. The ownership on safety doesn't sit with the safety department. It's not sitting with an individual. It's with the team. We measure and hold ourselves accountable as a team. I mentioned before we we do have a healthy little bit of competition amongst different teams and functions, but I think that's really there on more of a positive than a negative. But we all feel that we own this together. The coaching is being well received. I can't think of a case yet where we've really had a problem with an employee that's disputed or said that we were completely wrong or felt very justified in what he or she was doing. So that's been really good, and we continue to try and do that. The culture was not like that in the past. It was a lot more disciplinary in nature. Our global headquarters team has got a similar system they've rolled out, but they rolled their policies out with a disciplinary policy, and they're struggling to make the inroads that we have. So I think the coaching and the positive reinforcement we're trying to get done is really key. The risks are always a big thing that people will, they'll do a self-risk assessment. They think they're a good driver. As somewhere we all like to think we're a good driver. I had the camera in my car for a while, and when we were trialing a different system, I thought I was a good driver. The system quickly told me that I wasn't as good as what I thought. And I think, when we take risks in many things, whether it's driving, if it's for work or it's home, we all tend to think that this should be okay. It won't happen to me. And I think that going back and showing employees where things aren't okay helps validate what we're trying to achieve. Look, there is so much data with telematics, and I think working with Tunweir, we spent a lot of time in the beginning trying to define what we wanted to achieve. We haven't made very much change to it at all. I think it's been pretty good. So I think spending the time up front trying to set the standard what you want to see and how you want to see it, and then maybe make some tweaks along the way, but you shouldn't sort of be chopping and changing all the time. And I feel pretty proud that we sort of picked a couple of pieces and we've stuck with it. The partnering is really important. Tunweir is an extended part of our team. He's been with us on this journey from the beginning, and obviously we're working with the different telematics providers as well. We give them a lot of feedback, right? It's not here's opportunities we're seeing, here's where we've had to make changes to their system settings, the standard default settings for different reasons. And the feedback that we've had from them is they really, really appreciate it. So it helps them improve their system beyond just for what we're doing. I think the partnering is really key. We don't have, I said before, we're relatively small as for a fleet of 100 vehicles. I'm sure some of the people here on the phone would sort of dream of only having 100 vehicles to manage, but we don't have a fleet manager. There is no fleet manager role in our organization, and so we rely on experts to help us. The ESG reporting is another benefit that we've seen recently. It's certainly helped us as well with our fuel tax credits, but on the ESG reporting, we've now customized the report so that for our customers, we push a button and it's done, right? So it actually improves productivity as well internally for how we report to our different customers. Next. I mentioned the fuel tax credits. We've lowered costs around the telematics itself, sort of pick a strategy and then look to continue to improve it. We've improved our vehicle utilization. We had a number of idle vehicles. We ended up selling some vehicles that were sitting idle. We've also used it to help look at on-road time. So what's the more reliable vehicle? And then that's helping us make purchasing decisions going forward. Fuel and maintenance insights have been great. I think we saved nearly 20% reduction on maintenance costs last year through a number of different initiatives, not just this, but having data really helped us do so. And then the better vehicle lease management, we were finding that towards the end of the lease, we're always going over kilometres or over term and paying a lot more. We've now got good insights into that. So these are not necessarily around the safety side, but once we had all the data and we built the system, then these were flow throughs that we were getting. And that's it, Jerome, team. And welcome again for more questions as well.
So much in there. Such a great story. I've got a whole lot here and love to hear from the audience as well if you want to throw a few other questions up. I'll do an easy one to start with. So for some people who may not have heard the term ESG, would you like to sort of expand on that, please, Michael?
Yep, sure. So this is, we use actual fuel data that comes from the fuel providers that Osmose has, and convert that to emissions reporting that Osmose's customers require now. Emissions by type of different types of vehicle, how the emissions have tracked over a period of time, and also again sort of standardizing that it's not just about the whole number, it's how the average per vehicle or per kilometer driven or per 100 kilometers driven, how that is tracking over time, and how idling and those kinds of things could be having an impact on the emissions. So yeah, that's where we've sort of made it easy for Mike's team to report on sustainability to their customers.
And also, lots of customers you had earlier on, very diverse. Does some of their demands, does that put additional pressure on you, or are they sort of now, as they're working with you, sort of getting confidence, understanding, I guess, as you put the reporting up, is there sort of different measures required for different customers?
There is, but I think that what we've been doing is showing the customers what we're doing, and obviously depending where they sit in organisations, some haven't seen it within their own organisation, are very keen to learn more and understand it. I'd say in general though, the feedback has been very positive because we're actively doing something about it. Again, all of our customers recognise driving as a key risk, and us being proactive and trying to do this has been received very, very well. I've attended a number of events with AFMA as well, and spoken to different groups, and willing to continue to do the same for anybody who's having some challenges. I can certainly share lessons learned, but I think that the customization piece we try to obviously minimize, but if there's certain requirements like something slightly different on ESG reporting, we can accommodate it, but we try to keep with a standard.
I guess you've talked about all the benefits. I know it sounds quite expensive. It sounds like it's paid for itself quite easily.
It paid for itself in a number of different ways. So I think early the payback was there in just consolidating the different IBMS systems we had, right? I mean, I think there was up to 4, and in one vehicle, in probably 10 to 20 vehicles, we had 4 systems. So that's 4 subscriptions that we were having and paying monthly. When we rationalized all of that, we certainly saved a bunch of money. With better data, we could get our fuel tax credits improved. So that was also contributing to it. Maintenance costs are significantly down. So they're the things that are more tangible and measurable. But I would say, to me, the biggest benefit has been in 2 particular cases I've seen with the cameras where drivers have been prompted from the in-cab alerts where they're fatigued, micro sleeps. And one of the footage we saw, we could actually see another vehicle just on the right-hand side of the truck, and this employee was having a nap, and that he could have easily just veered off the road and taken the car with him, right? So that in-cab alert saved him and saved other people on the road as well. And I don't know how you could ever look at cost really being anything here when you see benefits like that. So yes, there's tangible stuff that you can do on improvements, but when you see the improvements in safety, and then you top that up with the cameras and being able to give in-cab alerts like that, the savings are endless.
Thank you for sharing that story. Tanwi, you mentioned a couple of high-risk periods. It was the Tuesday and the Thursday, and you have some hypotheses as to why. Are you able to share them at all?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's a confirmed hypothesis, or it's been proven. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, so Osmose workers work on a 10-day swing. They drive out on a Tuesday and they come back on the following Thursday, which is the 10 days, and then they have 4 days off. So it's 10 and 4 swing. And what we found was on the drive out day were the highest speeding events occurring, or sort of one of the highest days. In the mornings, for whatever reason, the drivers are trying to get to their location quickly. But the highest one by far out of all was, I think it was about 4% of all the events were happening at 11 a.m. on a Thursday, which is when the drivers are driving back for their 4 days off. So yeah, that's and I think that is quite, it was confirmed by all the managers,
and then that helps then lead is how we do our toolbox talks. I ring around from supervisors, remind drivers, take it easy coming home. There's no point to rush. So again, I think this is from a cultural standpoint. The employees were thinking that we were checking to see what time they were leaving. Are we getting a full day's work? Where we're actually then trying to say, look, hey, this is what we've seen. Here's what the data says. Take it easy, slow down, take your time. And that's that trust and the culture piece that I think has been reaffirmed.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I gather, how would you advise, or what sort of feedback to some of the other organisations out there? Say they might be quite unionised. What would you? Because some of the unions can have sort of put more constraints about not being able to use all the range of tools like you guys. What would you recommend to them?
I think the most powerful thing we had in our change management is when employees would tell the story. So our first pilots that we had, the half a dozen employees that we had that were pilots were actually giving feedback in meetings on how the system's going. They're giving obviously feedback to management on where we could make improvements. We were tweaking those as we went along. So, I think when people see the safety benefit and they don't see it's being used as disciplinary or an invasion of privacy, the in-cab alerts I mentioned on cameras, those things start to become secondary when it wakes somebody up and avoids an accident or a rollover. And so it's much better when it comes from employees. And again, how you set the policies up around it. For the first nearly 18 months, I guess it was just me that had access to example, for camera footage. And it was just my director in safety and myself that had data access for the telematics. So, we kept that as sort of, we weren't distributing it throughout the organization because we wanted to make sure the messaging stayed on point. Again, you gain trust, people see benefit. It then reassures that what we're trying to do is to look after the employees and keep them safe. And then there's a much better acceptance. But you've got to be talking to people. You have to reassure them what it's there for.
Just one thing, just on that point, Jerome, so in my previous roles, I have been in the room with unions, and I think the one biggest feedback you always hear about is lack of transparency and the communication having gaps, which is, drivers always talking about, we don't know where the data is going, we don't know what's happening with it, it's going in the black hole. So I think that continuous communication, having champions as well in the business, I think that just goes a long way. And it would definitely help, or it does help and build trust over a period of time, which really gets the buy-in of the drivers quickly, and then they become a lot more engaged and wanting to know more.
Wow, thank you for sharing. And question here from Sarah, and I think it's a big one after all the stuff you put out there. Great, thank you. Are there any other road safety or public safety initiatives, products this company focuses on? So you've shared all this. Is there anything you haven't shared?
Not really. I'd say what we continue to do is to refine this piece of it. Jerome, as I mentioned, posted speed limits is a new thing. We were trying to do more with the cameras and get more insights there. But we haven't really done anything more. There's a lot of other things that we do as sort of part of our standard work. I mean, we spend a lot of time with traffic management plans. Guys are working on roadsides. working on main roads. We spend a lot of time with permitting to get access to certain areas. So there is other pieces that go on, but really this is the core of the improvements we're trying to make now. Again, risk around driving and where people are working on the side of a road continues to be there, and we continue to try and find ways to improve that. But there's a lot of attention on that. We tend to work with the experts and train as much as we can. Nothing really else.
And as we sort of wind up now, I love your point how you're saying you've come to understand, you thought you were a good driver, and now you've got some tangibles saying, well, this is where you sit.
Yeah.
I think the other thing a lot of people don't understand is everyone has good and bad days. And I think it's when you got your peers, the systems, and picking up and self-regulating. But you're saying is when you're having those bad days, is you're more self-aware, so you know how to better regulate yourself.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, at one of my past jobs, I would have a team that was working in a different time zone, and on my way home, I would be on the phone, hands-free, for my 45-minute drive, and I got to the point of turning up at home and actually couldn't really remember how I got home. Right? I mean, it was just yes, I was concentrating, yes, I had two hands on the wheel, but you're really just not active in the driving mentally, I'll say. Yes, you're looking forward, but are you really paying attention? And we actually took the initiative there is to actually stop all use of mobile phones during while people were driving. It was just that it became a company policy, and in that business there, it was much easier to go implement. But I think you have to have these wake-up calls for yourself to really see those benefits. And that the camera for me gave me a whole bunch of insights on distracted driving, for example, where I would be looking to the left and to the right of what other vehicles were on the road, reading the signs and seeing what was going on around me, where it wasn't, at first I became defensive. It wasn't, oh, I'm not really distracted, I'm looking at other vehicles. But when I thought about it, I didn't really need to be looking at those other vehicles. It was more just filling in time as I went along. So it just helped me make small improvements as well. Easy to refute the information or the data and say it's not happening, but if you really start to look in the mirror and say what I'm doing here, could I be doing it better? There's always an opportunity to improve.
Great. Well, I think we'll wind up now. My final question to both of you after our discussions, what would you like to be? What would be your one take-home message you'd like to leave with everyone?
I would say spend the time engaging with the employees. There's a term in Lean where they say go to Gemba, so go to where the work is being done, spend the time with the employees and ask what help they need. Right? What do they think are the areas to go focus on? It's easy to sit here in an office in the metropolitan area and not be aware of some of the challenges the teams are having when they're 8, 9, 10, 12 hours away from home, spending 10 days away. And so go to the employees, spend the time with them, understand what their challenges are, give feedback to them, tell them what you want to try and get done as well, and see if those things can align.
Yeah, I would just expand on that point a little bit as well. I'm a keen student of psychology as well, and I think the habits that we get into and the way the system is implemented, I think with engaging with drivers and really communicating openly with them, it has a sort of different impact on the psychology. The drivers want to be better drivers. They want to know more. They come up to us all the time saying, well, I did this many events or did this yesterday. I'm not really sure what was going on. I really sort of need to pay more attention, or those kinds of things. So it really, if it's done with the right angle, it just engages the drivers and just really shifts their mindset, which has been very pleasing for us.
Well, thank you both for your time today, and in particular for sharing such a powerful and great case study. Thank you to our audience who listened in, and I hope you got some ideas, thoughts that could actually improve and protect your workers when they're out on the road. So thank you both very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for attending.